You've seen the best.
You've seen the worst.
Now here's the rest of both worlds.
I'm GayFesh, and the first time I saw Spock, I asked Mom why he was so angry.
And I'm Ari, and I like all jazz except for Dixieland.
And today we will be discussing the Star Trek The Next Generation episodes Angel 1 and 11001001. That's a mouthful.
It is.
Before we get into the episodes, I wanted to shout out a fellow Star Trek creator, Jessie. She is a YouTuber who, even when she's not talking about Star Trek, she's talking about Star Trek. And she recently put out this amazing 3-hour video called Sex in Star Trek. That she was inspired to do because a bunch of people were freaking out over the Lower Decks Naked Now episode. Where everyone was naked. Yeah. There was like this common refrain where it was like, oh, this is just besmirching Gene's vision. And she's just like, no, Gene was a massive horn dog. What are you talking about? Gene wanted more sex in Star Trek. It was like the other people who were like holding him back. So she did like a whole like 3-hour video all about Gene's relationship with sex. And it's a really good video. But unfortunately, YouTube recently put it age restricted, which basically kills its growth in the algorithm. It's not going to get recommended to people. You have to be logged in to watch it. And so I'm going to make sure that there's a link to that video in the description for the podcast and on the YouTube version of the podcast as well, because I want to make sure people go and take a look at it and give that video some love, because she put months of work into it and I watched it and it was a wild ride. Oh,
that's really interesting. I'll have to give it a watch, maybe once I finish Next Generation.
I just wanted to make sure to bring that up, and I will probably be mentioning it here with our first episode that we cover, but why don't we go ahead and get into that?
Yeah, today we're talking about Angel 1. It's the 14th episode of the first season. It originally aired on the 25th of January, 1988. It was written by Patrick Berry, directed by Michael Rhodes.
While Riker leads an away team to a female-dominated planet, a mysterious virus spreads among the Enterprise crew.
So I looked away for 2 seconds and could not figure out. I was writing notes about something else, came back, and there was a virus on the Enterprise. Do they ever explain where it came from and I just missed it? Or what happened there?
I think there was like an offhand reference to like some away team that had just come back from some other planet.
Oh, okay. That's what I missed.
Yeah, it was, what it really came from was the writer's room going, oh, we have to fill a B plot here.
Right. That's what it felt like for sure.
And it was like really, really poorly written. The episode in general, I want to say, but especially the virus stuff, because at the beginning, Beverly rules out person-to-person contact, but then determines it's airborne, which would
be person to person, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, at first, I thought it came from the holodeck. I thought that was going to be the plot, because
that's what I thought it was going to be, too.
Because Wesley and his friend come out with their sparkle suits, and they like smell like Klingon homeworld, and then all of a sudden people are getting sick. So I thought, wow, is the holodeck making everyone sick?
That would be an interesting holodeck malfunction episode that I don't think they've ever done. That would have been a better episode.
But to go back to what you said, I don't think the episode's very well written. It was trying something, but it was way too heavy-handed, and it wasn't well balanced for what it was trying to do. I thought the writing was just kind of meh in the whole thing.
I mentioned Jessie Gender's video Sex in Star Trek, and there's like one specific incident in the writer's room that she brought up, and it was about this episode.
Oh, interesting.
It was getting more into Gene's weird sexism later in his life. He went through a pretty ugly divorce in like the 60s and 70s, which kind of like tainted how he would interact with women going forward. And he was talking about how, like, in this episode, he was like, you know, we want to show that, you know, women are as capable of leading as the men, but I don't want anyone to imply that society would be better if women were running it. And then he goes into like this massive like rant about how they're all C words who are, you know, it was just like everyone in the writer's room was just like, what? And then like he just looks out the window and goes, okay, so on page 8.
Wow. Okay. That kind of explains the tone of the episode, because it seemed like, oh, we're doing the Star Trek egalitarian thing here, just like the Betazoids. Here's a planet that's ruled by women, you know, like I was all along for the ride, but it was such a weird, bumpy, strange ride.
I also thought it was interesting how like they didn't really try to make the women more buff. Like I would have pictured like if they wanted to have, because all the men that they cast on Angel One, they cast like shorter,
very small men. Yeah,
they cast twinks, and but all the women just looked like normal 80s women. I would have thought they would have gone for like more,
almost 280s, right? Because like they kind of tried to make everybody look a little sci-fi, but the Beata, she looked just like she stepped out of an 80s fashion magazine, like her haircut, her clothes, or everything.
Yeah, I would have expected to see more butch women.
Oh, that's true too. Yeah, and lesbian women too. On a planet where there's matriarchal society, there's going to be more lesbians. The fact they were all into dudes made me do a double take as well. But I agree with that. I expected the women to be a little bit more, not necessarily Amazonian, but like if this is a society that's evolved over thousands and thousands and thousands of years to be matriarchal, they would be the buffer, bigger ones, not just the men would be like, smaller. It didn't really seem to work for me. I don't know. It was a weird episode.
The costumes that the men wore on the planet.
Which is the real point of the episode. The real point of the episode is getting Riker into that outfit.
And I can tell you that Bill Theus, who was one of the costume designers for the original series and for the first season of Star Trek, and this is another thing that I learned from Jessie Gender, Sex, and Star Trek video, apparently every time he was given like a buxom woman to work on, he would just be like, "Ugh, I'm so bored." But anytime he got to put a man in something sexy, he was all for it.
Interesting.
And he was a gay man, so he got to have fun with this one. I kind of thought it was weird that Tasha and Deanna would be laughing at Riker wearing skimpy outfits when, like, on the Enterprise, you've got men wearing miniskirts.
Yeah, that's true. I enjoyed his willingness and readiness to put on the ceremonial outfit or whatever, though.
Yeah, for sure. But also, like, Tasha especially, like, I'm sorry, Tasha, I saw that underboob that you were sporting a couple episodes back. Like, that was the same costume designer. You don't really have room to be laughing here.
No, but one nipple exposed is a look. It really is.
Oh, for sure. And I like a little bit of hair on the chest.
It was a very stark contrast to the dude that was like Beata. I think that's how they said it. Mm-hmm. That was her little consort or whatever. He was very like
Trent.
Yeah, he was very like smooth or whatever. So it was an interesting contrast.
Mm-hmm. Well, I am sure that that actor waxes.
Oh, probably. How about the look on Deanna's face? I think when he comes out of the room, she has this look. I don't know. I can't even describe. It was like half shock, half embarrassment. I don't know. I thought it was funny.
I don't know. It felt like a very 80s reaction to it rather than a 24th century reaction
that's
to
true.
it. They all seemed a little flustered and like, oh, well, that's silly that the men have to wear the sexy outfits. I'm like, no, they should be like, I like it.
They know other planets too. Like there's other matriarchal planets out there. So it's a little weird, but I don't know.
I did appreciate that it gave Deanna and Tasha they basically were running point on the away mission because it's a matriarchal society, so obviously they're going to respect the women more, but it gives them more to do because usually they're, the ones
standing around doing not much.
Yeah.
So I was thinking as I was watching Jonathan Frakes get into that outfit and come back out, that reminded me of that story from Doctor Who where they said if you put Matt Smith in a fez, he's never going to take it off. They said you can't put Matt in a fez, he'll never take it off. And it's true, the dude wears a fez like so many times throughout the rest of the show. And I kept thinking, I wonder how Jonathan Frakes felt about this outfit. He seems so gleeful to put it on, He gets that little sparkle in his eye.
He was actually a little uncomfortable with it.
Was he? He did a good job of not showing it.
Well, actually, you could see that there was maybe a little bit where he was like not fully comfortable in his own skin wearing it, but like he was obviously like, no, I'm going to be wearing it. It was like he was just something he was pushing through.
Yeah.
I don't know. I liked it. I thought he did a good job wearing it.
I thought he did too.
And of course, he did a better job getting out of it almost immediately.
So he wore his little earring thing on the wrong ear or on the other ear than the other guy did. And I wondered what that was about, because it was very clearly on the other ear for the main dude. But when he put it on the other ear for himself.
Oh, I didn't notice that. It may just be, I don't know what different ears signify. I mean, obviously...
I just thought it was interesting that I noticed.
Wait, which ear did he have it on?
I'm thinking, I think it would have been his left ear.
Okay, I'm trying to remember, because back in like the 80s and 90s, gay men would wear their earring in one ear to signify that they were gay, and I don't remember which one it was.
Me either. Yeah, I remember that.
And I'm wondering if they specifically...
I don't even know if it was ever true, though. I know it was like an urban myth, but was it a real thing?
It wasn't a real thing in the culture. I just don't remember, and it's not really a thing now, because now you just say, I'm gay.
Right. That ugly glass thing sure was ugly that he gave her as a present. I didn't understand that whole scene, because he comes in with this weird glowing glass ugly thing, and it really was just plot device to get that guy in there so he could be in there and the woman could be like, I get to screw whoever I want to screw, you know?
When Data asks what an aphrodisiac is...
Oh, he was so excited to explain what it was. Riker was.
But... my question is, how can he claim he's fully functional if he doesn't know what an aphrodisiac is?
It's a very simple concept that he would know from like the dictionary or the encyclopedia that would have been uploaded to his brain, right?
Yeah.
That was the same thing I thought. I thought that was weird. They wanted to give Riker an opportunity to explain what an aphrodisiac was, but in doing so, they kind of undermined Data's like knowledge base.
Oh, so back to the ship with everybody getting sick. When Picard puts Geordi in command when he has to go to, there's one thing I noticed, and it's something that is almost always done in the show. Whenever somebody has to leave their post on the bridge, there's always somebody like in the wings who just steps right in without being told to go and fill it. But you never see, like, in, like, wide shots of the ship, of the bridge, like, any standby officers. They just, like, appear out of nowhere to do it.
Right.
And I wonder what, like, the actual mechanism of that is, because nobody ever has to say, oh, hey, I need somebody to replace this thing. It's just always wordlessly, here's an extra, they step right in to fill the thing. And, I mean, I like that they make sure that gets done, but it's also... like, do they just not want to have a line to throw in for that? And it just shows that the Enterprise is so efficiently run, they don't even need to issue commands to make sure that a post is staffed.
Are you talking about when he is going to go down to engineering to fix something and Worf says, oh, but you have other duties or whatever, you should send someone else to do it? Is that what you're talking about?
No, I'm talking specifically about when Geordi stands up from the helm to go sit in the captain's chair. Somebody immediately goes in and sits down at the helm.
Oh, I didn't even notice that. I guess that's why I wasn't tracking what you were talking about. So yeah, I mean, because somebody has to pilot the ship, right?
Right.
Interesting. Yeah, I guess they just kind of know if this person shifts up in command, I go into his spot or whatever. There must be like predetermined, like, fill in the ranks if somebody moves.
Mm-hmm.
And by the end, was Beverly in charge of the whole ship? Because at one point she answered. They called and she said, this is Crusher or whatever. So, like, did the chain of command get so far down that Beverly was in charge of the ship?
Oh, the CMO is typically outside the chain of command. She can, take command in a pinch. There's a couple episodes later in the show where she actually does take command of the ship. Or like she'll work like the night shift or something on bridge duty.
Interesting.
But typically, CMO's duties are very different. I mean, she does have a rank. She has the rank of commander, but it's never brought up because she's a doctor. So that's that's first and foremost what she does on the ship.
What she's there for, yeah. How about the holding the communicator in his hand? I thought that was weird. Why? I mean, maybe it was against their culture to put it on the male outfit or something, but he was just holding his communicator in his hand.
I thought that was weird too. I mean, obviously they normally put it over, the left side of their chest, but that was exposed, so he couldn't put it there. But I thought, well, why not just put it on the right side of the chest?
Yeah, I had that thought too. And so I thought it was a little weird, but...
I expect it was probably a matter of it didn't look as good on the outfit if they had pinned the communicator on, so they just decided, oh, just hold it in your hand.
Oh, yeah, that kind of makes sense.
That's probably what they decided.
Jordy's Make It So was adorable. It was so cute. I loved it. Picard was the whiniest man with a cold. I know it's kind of a stereotypical men are very whiny with their colds, but man, did they make him really whiny.
Yeah, what is that meme? Women think that childbirth is the most pain you'll ever experience, but they have never met a man with a cold.
Yeah, exactly. And so I thought that was cute that they were kind of playing that up. And then, as you know, I watch things with subtitles, and my favorite subtitle of the whole episode was Klingon sneeze.
I had that written down too.
Klingon sneeze. It made me laugh. But all in all, I thought the episode was weird. I thought the premise was strange. I thought, how are they married and she doesn't even realize it till that point, with that her like second in command is married to the revolutionary. I thought it was stupid that he was willing to die for it when they could just take them off the planet. Like, there was just like the whole episode just kind of felt like it was spinning its gears and not getting anywhere.
Well, I think they were trying to, I mean, they weren't successful at it, but they were trying to like portray like an apartheid society, and how the guy would rather die because he was basically like a civil rights activist at this point. So I could understand why he wouldn't want to flee,
right?
Because he could probably see, you know, his death as being a martyr. But I don't know. I feel like there was probably a better script somewhere that got lost in the writer's room for this. And yeah. I think trying to sex it up a little much cheapened the episode, maybe. I usually don't say that about Star Trek, because I like sex in Star Trek, but I don't know. I don't think it worked as well in this one.
I don't know. Because they were trying to show her as being like strong, independent woman. They can sleep with whoever she wants, but it didn't feel good. I don't know. I didn't enjoy the episode. I guess I made that clear. So, the second episode we're going to talk about today is 11001-001. It is the 15th episode of the first season. It aired on the 1st of February, 1988, and it was written by Maurice Hurley and Robert Lewin and directed by Paul Lynch.
While a group of technologically advanced aliens board the Enterprise to update the ship's computer systems, Riker discovers just how real a holodeck character can be.
I loved this episode. There's a lot of things I loved about this episode, but my first complaint is that 11001-001 means nothing in binary. I looked it up because I wanted to know. I thought maybe it would mean like minuet or something like that. It means nothing. It doesn't mean anything. That's silly.
Well, it's the names of the four binars, because the binars are named 11, 00, 10, and 01. That's about it. That's what it means.
Oh, it's their names. Okay, I thought it would mean a word, so that's why I was thrown off by it. I was so frustrated. I was like, oh, that's going to mean something. And then I was like, it doesn't mean anything.
Well, to get a word, you'd need a much longer episode title.
That's true.
Because that would be at most one letter.
So, are these the basis for the guys from Galaxy Quest?
The main guys in Galaxy Quest, the guys who built the ship? Yeah,
like the guys who come to get Tim Allen and Sigourney Weaver.
You know, I actually can kind of see where you're going with from that. They kind of had a similar walk, didn't they?
And the way that they talked and the way that they moved together and stuff. I don't know. Something about it really reminded me. I haven't seen Galaxy Quest in a while.
I think you might be onto something there. That's
I think so too. When I was watching it, it felt really like Galaxy Quest.
I did like how they would always finish each other's sentences when they're speking English.
Yeah,
and then
I thought that was cute.
When they're speaking their own language, like I love how the actors just like open their mouth in like an O shape, and then they just dub in the sounds.
So I think this weekend when I relax, I'm going to treat myself like a starship captain. I'm going to put my feet up. I'm going to have a personal relaxation light, and I'm going to lose myself in pages of a novel. I had to rewind it. I was so excited by this list of treat yourself that John Luke was going to do. I wanted to get the list right because I was like, that sounds amazing. I want to do that.
That is kind of how he winds down. He's usually putting his feet up, reading a book, and drinking Earl Grey.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, oh, that's a cute visual. There was more acrylic blocks as computers.
Of course.
If you didn't.
There always is.
What did you think of Data painting?
This is actually the first instance of Data painting, but Data is a painter through the rest of the show.
Oh, is he?
Yeah,
Interesting.
it's something he keeps up. It's actually, I even think one of his paintings is like a relevant plot point in Star Trek Picard, which, takes place 30 years later.
So this is the origin of the painting, though, yeah? This is the first time we've seen him paint? I don't think we've seen him paint before.
It's the first time we've seen him paint, and I did like the joke, a blind man teaching an android how to paint. That was that was cute.
I liked the excuse of the explanation of an attempt at pure creativity. I thought that was funny.
Well, yeah, because his painting was very abstract.
It was.
He does a lot of abstract art, but he also does a lot of, he experiments with the different art styles, and it's a good outlet for his creativity.
Which I was thinking about, like, as a computer, but he's not a computer, right? Because he's an artificial intelligence. So he would have creativity as an artificial intelligence, right? Or is that a purely human thing?
Well, he is a computer, but I mean, humans are basically computers, right? Like, I mean, our brains are like just very advanced processing units. They're just not built with silicon. They're built with carbon.
But can an android have original thought?
Well, yeah, that's a good philosophical question. I would say sufficiently advanced. Yes, of course. Data is a computer, but he is also a person.
He is, yeah. I mean, and I started thinking about that creativity thing, and it kind of like was in the back of my head the whole time, because I was like, as you, as my friend, know, I'm never usually on the side of the robots. Usually when it comes down to they want me to care about a robot and something, it's really hard for me to care about a robot. It's like with Westworld, for example. It took me a lot to get on the robot side. Like the first whole season and a half, I think. It took me to get like where I was finally like, screw the humans, pro robots, let's go. Because to me, they're things that are created by humans, and every thought that they have and every feeling that they have is programmed by a human. And so because of that, they can never be truly, an independent like thought. So I'm not usually, or you have independent thought. So I'm not usually on the robot side of robot apocalypse type things.
How much do you think humans have independent thought? Our personality,
it's a good question.
Like most of society is just built on other people and the way that we're conditioned. I mean, in the nature versus nurture argument, I tend to side a lot more on the nurture. Yeah, you can say that an android doesn't have original thought because he was just programmed with what he was. But I mean, I was raised by my parents with certain ideals and certain beliefs. We all were. Mm-hmm. So how's that different?
I guess that's true. And we can't really know, because unless we're raised in a room without any sort of outside influence, we wouldn't know if our thoughts are original or if they're just part of our subconscious that we gleaned as we're walking through the world, We're
going to get deeper into this in a season 2 episode called The Measure of a Man, which is pretty much all about this. So I will be looking forward to that conversation with you. But
yeah, I'm looking forward to that too. Okay, so here's my biggest problem with this whole episode.
Okay.
Why would a man from the 24th century, it's 24th century, right? I think that's what I looked up. Why would he like jazz from 1958? It would be the equivalent of me liking music from 1588 in 1988. And it doesn't make any sense that they would. And then Picard comes in, he's like, this is a place I would have picked for myself too. And I'm like, why? There's been 400 years of music to have happened between 1958 and the time that they are on the Enterprise. It's kind of this big glaring plot hole of the Enterprise's holodeck episodes at this point, is that everything is set in the 20th century. And everything that's important to them is from the near past of 1988, not the 24th century.
It is a limitation of how fiction is written that when you're writing for the far future, you're still writing a show that's going to be seen by people in the present.
So we've had the noir episode now, we've had a jazz episode, we've had all these episodes, and you can definitely see what age range they think is watching their show. But as Riker is a much younger man than Picard, I would assume he would be into things that are not the same, especially when he has 400 more years of stuff to choose from. It seemed so lazy. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I would, although I wouldn't say that liking jazz is something that would be gone in the 24th century. I mean, in Deep Space Nine, Benjamin Sisko's from New Orleans, and Jazz is still alive and well there. And
sure.
It just seems a little more weird that he would specifically pick like 1958 versus say like Jazz from like 2349 or something.
Right, like a specific time. It was the 1958 that really threw me off. That's what had me getting on my phone while the episode was going and trying to figure out like what the equivalency would be. It'd be like Jonathan Frakes in 1988 being super into music from 1588, which no one listens to for funsies.
Well, like, and you know, I like classical music, but like, if I had a holodeck, I don't think I would go to a setting where like I was listening to classical music and like, you know, the 17th century Austria or anything like that. I don't think I'd do that.
My husband would. He was watching me watch this episode, and he really was like, well, you know, I enjoy that kind of music, right? And I was like, yeah, I get that, but it's so weird to be so specific to 1958. Like, that's what was bothering me about it.
Yeah, I feel like jazz history and jazz culture would have evolved, and he probably, I mean, he would, there's always going to be some nostalgia in jazz for the past. A lot of, you know, jazz staples are from like, you know, the early days of jazz, you know, from the 30s to the 50s. So I can understand somebody in the 80s wanting to set it back then. But yes.
Not someone 400 and something years later. But that's, sure. I mean, it's just more of like and I know that it kind of, you know what the holodeck episodes remind me of are the historical traveling in time episodes of Doctor Who, where they're trying to like teach us what Shakespeare was like.
Sure.
You know? And so it feels like that they're trying to do those kinds of episodes, you know, like, oh, here's Charles Dickens, you know? And so it feels like that's what they're trying to do, which is fine or whatever. I just feel like there's this 400-year gap of culture. Like there was some giant war where culture just stopped, you know?
Oh, you mean like World War III, where 600 million people died in a nuclear holocaust?
Is that a thing? in Star Wars? Or
in
Star Trek? Whoops.
Yeah.
Oh, see? Yeah, so apparently there was a thing. I mean, because like in Fallout, the reason that everything is still set in like the 50s is because of the nuclear race, right? They were racing to build nukes. And so they didn't like advance the culture or clothes or cars or anything because they were just trying to protect themselves in the Cold War. And so that's like the whole reasoning for behind why everything looks like it's from the 50s. And so I was trying to figure out if there was some reason that most of the culture that they reference in Next Generation happens to be from the near past of the time that the show was being recorded.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the jazz thing was probably just so that Riker could play the trombone, because clearly he plays the trombone. It seemed to be a setup so he could be like, oh, haha, I play the bone.
Yes, he does. And he plays the trombone throughout the series.
Does he call it the bone? Because I'm still a little bit disturbed by that.
No, I don't think he calls it the bone after that. I think he was just
and a bone for me.
trying to get into the slang of the time, maybe.
Yeah. Okay, so I think I killed the whole Riker liking jazz thing long enough.
Let's talk about Minuet.
Yeah, let's talk about her.
I don't know. I didn't feel like she was appropriately more intuitive of a holodeck character than we had seen in like The Big Goodbye.
So I felt like we were supposed to just suspend our disbelief and it was different in person to Picard and Riker.
Uh-huh.
Because no, there wasn't that big of a difference. Like when the lady turns at the very end and it's not Minuet, it's a different lady that looks like Minuet. She looked a little more dead in the eyes or whatever. That was really the only difference, is that she didn't quite have that same sparkle in her eye that Minuet did.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, I felt like I couldn't tell the difference. Like, so I felt like we were supposed to just suspend our disbelief and trust Riker and Picard that she was much different.
Yeah.
Because there was no way to physically show that. Right?
Right. Now, Minuet does leave a lasting impression on Riker. Remember her character, because it's going to be relevant in the future.
Good to know. I thought the actress looked familiar, so I had to look her up. She was on Spencer for Hire, and I'm thinking that's where I remember her from. My mom used to watch that show, and I'd watch it with her, and I'd be like 8 or 9 when she was on Spencer for Hire, but she was also on Law and Order for like 15 years or something. As like a secondary doctor. But the second she came on screen, I was like, oh, I know that actress from somewhere. But it didn't turn out to be anything major, just a couple places like that. But that's interesting that she makes a lasting impression because he really did seem taken with her in a way that we haven't really seen Riker taken with anybody.
Other than Deanna.
Can
we talk about how Riker left Wesley in charge of the ship?
Yeah, I guess we can.
I mean,
but he did, didn't he? I didn't really think about that, but yeah, he did.
I mean, they're in space docks. It's not like going anywhere. Most of the crew is off like doing shore leave things, but like it just felt like I'm like, really? That's who you're leaving in charge? There's no other like actual commissioned officers. You're just giving it to the kid.
Yeah,
hey kid, go watch this. $1 trillion ship. Make sure those little aliens don't do anything with our $1 trillion ship.
Yeah, I'm gonna just go away now. You're in charge, kid. You've proven yourself. I feel like you're ready.
Look, kid, last time we didn't listen to you and you almost got killed by an android. So here's 4 computer beings. We're going to let you keep an eye on them. You've earned it.
Okay, so there was a point where they're trying to like figure out where Riker and Picard are. And Yar is on the space station with fake Picard, as I kept calling him in my head. I don't know what his name was, but he was wearing the same red outfit and had the same haircut and talked in a weirdly American accent. But I was like, he like grabs her arm. Did you see it? Do you know what I'm talking about? To like force her to look at what he wants her to look at. And I thought, man, that actor overstepped his bounds because it was not the direction, I don't think, of like grab Tasha and flip her around. He's mildly saying, look, there they are, or something like that. But he's got this like death grip on her arm. And I was like, take your hands off of Lieutenant Tasha Yar right now, fake Picard. Like I was so mad about it. And I don't know why he was grabbing her like that, but I don't think it was meant to be a part of the show, of the like writing of the show. I think he was probably just grabbing her in like kind of a way that men do touch women. And it bothered me so much because I think in reality, if a man had grabbed Tasha that way, she would have fucking flipped him on his back and taken him out. Like that's why I thought it was the actor and not the writing in the script, because it just it really bothered me. Something about that actor was just off. Like he didn't feel right in that role. He didn't have very many lines, but I think the fact that he looked just like Picard is really not a good thing for his character. But it's because I was constantly comparing him to Picard, but he was kind of this nothing character, but he was there and I had to pay attention to him. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I actually totally missed that. I vaguely recall him like turning her around, but I didn't pay attention to how hard he grabbed her or anything.
Because then the whole time they're like looking, he's still got his arm around her, his hand around her arm. It really bothered me.
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah. So do you know what Riker's middle name is? Because they said it was, I laughed a little bit when it was William T. Riker, or it was Riker William T.
Yeah, it's Thomas. We actually talked about that in the Haven episode.
Did we? Okay, because I knew it sounded familiar. I was like, oh man, I don't think it's Tiberius as badly as I want it to be Tiberius.
Yeah, no, it's actually not established yet that it's Thomas. Right now, it is just an initial. They don't say what it is until season 6.
Okay, so we're gonna bleed back into the other episode a little bit, Angel 1.
Okay.
And because I forgot about a question that I had, but it's actually relevant to this episode as well.
All right.
How does the teleporter? That's not what it's called. Transporter. How does the transporter work? So they're standing in a room and they go 4 to beam up. How does the transporter know? I used to, as a kid, thought it was their communicators, but they often bring people that don't have communicators with them. So how do they work?
Very well, thank you. That's how often bugged me.
Because I'm specifically thinking about during Angel 1, they were going to try to beam up everybody that was like one of the revolutionaries or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. And then they're trying to evacuate the Enterprise in this one, and some people are leaving through the gangplank type thing, and some people are getting on the transporter, which they only have filled up. There's like those 6 dots, right?
Right.
And they would have, the 2 in the back didn't have people on them during an evacuation. What kind of safety is that? Where's OSHA? Like, because why aren't they, it's kind of like the Titanic not filling their, lifeboats full of people and only putting 8 people in a lifeboat that holds 50. Like, why were they only teleporting out 4, like, of the dots at a time? I assume those dots were things you could teleport away from.
Yeah, I have to assume the reason that they only did 4 is because, like, where the camera was, like, the people behind would have been partially occluded. And if they fade out the people in front, you should, in theory, see them behind them. But in order to do that, you'd have to film in a whole additional plate to do that. So it was probably just a matter of, we don't want to do that, so we'll just have 4 people so that it's a cheaper effect.
I see. That would make more sense. Yeah. But that whole, like, 4 to beam up, 4 to, at one point, I think in Angel 1, Riker was going to beam 14 people up. How does the transporter know? Do they have to be touching them?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, obviously, it's the transporter chief who, picks the people to lock on, and usually, like, when they go, X number to beam up, they will, like, step aside from other people to go find a spot away from everyone else. And so I think usually it's just, okay, there's 14 people in that area, so those must be the 14 people I get. But sometimes it's like you're like 1 to beam up, but it's like 1 person just in a crowd.
Right. Now, with Starfleet people, it makes sense they could use the communicator, right? Like, if I'm Picard and I'm like, Geordi, beam me up, he's going to be like, there's your communicator, I'll just transport you up here. But when they bring up all the random, like, civilians, that's where it gets confusing.
Yeah. I don't know. But I also suspect that if they went into the minutia of, like, how you would actually arrange that kind of a transport, it would bog down the episode.
Right. That makes sense.
So I think it's probably just economics of storytelling.
What if they had auto-destructed the Enterprise? This is the other thing I was thinking about, because, like, it's early on in the show. If I remember right, don't they wreck the Enterprise in Generations? Is that the one where they wreck it? Okay. Yep. So do they wreck the Enterprise on many other occasions? I was thinking as it got down to 2 minutes to auto-destruct, how funny it would be if on, like, the 14th episode, it just blew up the Enterprise.
So I will say that the auto-destruct has been invoked multiple times. And there also, I don't know if, like, there was ever a time where the auto-destruct actually blew up the Enterprise and then, like, time travel fixed it. But I do know there are times where the Enterprise blows up and then time travel fixes it. But I don't remember if that was auto-destruct.
Okay. So obviously Minuet was, like, programmed by the Binars, right? And so how come they didn't hear the red alert? Did they program it not to go off?
They must have done something to the holodeck, because especially they did, like, an all call to the ship. They tried to get a hold of Picard and Riker, and the holodeck did not go off. And I can't imagine if you did an all call emergency that, somebody in the holodeck would be exempt from that.
Yeah. And the whole point was they wanted Riker to be there to save them. Right? Like, that was the whole point. And why did they choose Riker over Picard? Because obviously they wrote Minuet to trap Riker there, but they also, as a side note, got Picard because, once again, somebody just sauntered into somebody else's holodeck experience, which is just the weirdest thing to me. But, like, he just saunters in and sits down and admires Minuet,
Yeah. I would think, especially if I were on the Enterprise and I know Riker, of anybody to just saunter in on their holodeck experience, I would not walk in on a Riker holodeck, because you don't know at what point in the conquest he's at.
Right. And I'm assuming that they can have sex on the holodeck, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. They have to be able to, right?
There is a frequent joke in the Star Trek subreddit that I think actually at one point ended up being a banned question, which was who did they hire as to be the jizz mop for the holodeck once they turn everything off?
I assume it's like a Taco Bell bathroom where there's, like, a drain in the bottom of the floor and they can just spray the whole thing down. Now that you bring it up, that's how I imagine it. Because who wants that job? I guess that's what acting ensigns are for, right? Wesley, get over here.
I also think it probably just dematerializes because there was, like, in The Big Goodbye, there was a risk where they were like, if we shut it off now, it could shut off everything in there. Implying that with the safety protocols off, the holodeck couldn't differentiate what which matter was generated by the holodeck and which matter was supposed to be there. So
because it's actual matter in the holodeck. Yeah.
Right.
Because it's like all replicated or whatever. Like it's a giant replicator.
Yeah. I mean, some of the stuff is just force fields and photons, but some stuff is actually replicated. And, you know, the holodeck would have to keep track of what is replicated versus what came in there to make sure that it, you know, doesn't kill you when you turn it off. But
right. And it's interesting that I thought that once I realized the Binars had trapped them there, that they would be trapped inside the holodeck. But as soon as Jean-Luc said exit, it appeared and they were able to leave.
Well, right, because they didn't want to trap them there. They just wanted to distract them so that they'd still be on the ship once they had hijacked it. They wanted, because, again, they wanted to make sure that if they went unconscious like they did, that there'd be somebody there to finish the rescue mission. How
much trouble do you think they're really going to be in with the Federation? It doesn't seem like a lot. They did what they had to do, right?
Right, and, you know, and I appreciate that, you know, it's their binary thinking, that if they, the reason they didn't ask is because there was a risk that they would have said no, and then their species would be extinct. So I can appreciate their mode of thinking there.
For sure, yeah.
There are a lot of times where the Enterprise is hijacked, or like a species does something against, you know, the Starfleet crew's will. But it ends up being something that they do because like it would save them, and like it just doesn't occur to them that the Federation would have helped them, and it's usually in that kind of a situation Picard is very lenient on them. It's like, look, you could have asked us for help and we would have gladly helped you. That's what we do. So we'll ease up on you on this time because it was for a good cause.
Yeah, and even if they go to jail for the rest of their lives, they save their whole planet, right? Like I think they took that risk into consideration. Like even if they were going to be punished for it, at least they would save their planet on the way.
Mm-hmm. One thing that I noticed, and it was just a little tiny thing, at the beginning of the episode when Worf and Yar are in their Parisi Squares team uniforms. They're off to go play some sport. They never explain what Parisi Squares is, but it is something that is referenced a lot in the show.
Oh, really? I thought that was just some word they made up and we'd never hear it again.
No, they'll reference it again. We never actually see a match of it being played, but it's referenced. When Riker meets them in the hallway and wishes them good luck, he reaches out his hand and he briefly gives the Vulcan salute.
Does he? I didn't notice.
Yeah. I was like, wait, did he do that? And I went back and I freeze framed it, and there it was. He did a little Vulcan salute.
Is that sport a Vulcan sport, baby?
I don't know. I don't think it is. It could be. They never... I'd need to look it up on Memory Alpha to be sure, but no, I think it was just, maybe it was just something Riker picked up at one point, or maybe it's just something that everyone has adopted because it's a Star Trek thing now.
Yeah, that is interesting.
It was a cute little thing.
I thought it was interesting that everybody was off to do things and Riker was wandering the halls of the Enterprise, like, all lonely by himself. Now looking back on it, knowing that the Binars were trying to get him alone on the ship to save their planet, I wonder if they helped arrange all the stuff that the people were interested in. Like, Beverly had that person she was really excited to go share her theories with, and they were really excited to go play that game, and like everybody was clearing off the Enterprise, and I wonder if the Binars had anything to do with that, since they were trying to get the Enterprise cleared out so that they could get help.
Well, I don't think they had anything to do with the people who had things to do, because like anytime you go to space dock, you're looking for shore leave, so people are going to be looking for things, and I mean they had to fake an emergency so that the rest of the ship would be evacuated, because a lot of people still were on the ship.
I was surprised how many people were still on the ship when they don't get to go on shore leave very often. I was surprised how many people were still in there, like not people running the ship, but there was a lot of civilians.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was weird. Like, who hangs out at home when you're finally off of somewhere where you can get off the ship,
Particularly for a starbase that large, like it's large enough that the Enterprise can be completely engulfed by it. Like, there's got to be a lot to do there.
A ton to do, and like get out, stretch your legs, don't be stuck on the Enterprise. You're gonna burn out. Take a vacation.
Mm-hmm.
So thanks for joining us today. I'm Ari,
and I'm GayFesh,
and until next time,
live long and prosper. Thank you for listening. You can find more episodes on Apple, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts. We're on Twitter at RestBothWorlds. Join our Patreon at patreon.com/restofbothworlds for bonus content and hear your name at the end of each episode.